Johnny Prince is P3. Dave B. Racing from New Zealand is 4th on mediums. Best lap is a 1:35.933. That Canadian guy is P6. Best lap is a 4:30.717. Johnny Prince is 3rd. The qualification session is at Permanent Circuit Waikato in Hendley, New Zealand. Bray from Italy is P3 on mediums. The race dictator from New Zealand is P2 on supers. That Canadian guy from Canada is 5th on mediums. The race dictator is 2nd. Jason Short from New Zealand is 1st on supers. The race dictator is 1st up 3.46 on supers. The race dictator improved his P1 with a 1:35.514. That Canadian guy is 4th. That Canadian guy is provisional pole with a 1:34.704. Bray from Italy is P7 up 14.55. Jason Short is P4 up 2.15. Toddy Mustang is provisional pole with a 1:33.629. The race dictator from New Zealand is P3 up 0.24. race dictator improved is third with a 134.220. 0.591 off pole. 5 minutes remaining in the session. Johnny Prince from New Zealand is P5 up 0.08 on supers. Johnny Prince improved is fifth with a 135.130. 1.501 off pole. Jason Short is second up 0.20. The race dictator is third up 0.19. Best lap is a 134.220. 0.591 off pole. Dave B Racing from New Zealand is sixth on supers. Toddy Mustang is provisional pole with a 133.520. Dave B Racing improved is sixth with a 135.136. 1.616 off pole. Jason Short is P2. Best lap is a 133.789. 0.269 off pole. The race dictator is third. Jason Short is second. The qualifying session is now in overtime. Toddy Mustang from New Zealand is first on Supers. Best lap is a 1:33.520. Johnny Prince is fifth. Best lap is a 1:35.130. 1.610 off pole. The race dictator is third. Johnny Prince is fifth. Toddy Mustang is P1. Broadcast bot is 20th. The race session is at Permanent Circuit Waikato in Hentley, New Zealand. Toddy Mustang from New Zealand is P1 on Supers. Jason Short from New Zealand is P2 on Supers. 20 minutes remaining in the session. Race start. That Canadian guy from Canada is P3 on Supers. That Canadian guy is now second. Dave B Racing from New Zealand is P6 on Supers. Dave B Racing passed Bray for fifth. Dave B Racing is now P7. Bray from Italy is sixth on mediums. Bray passed Toddy Mustang for P5. Toddy Mustang is P6. Dave B Racing is P7. Toddy Mustang is sixth. Dave B Racing is seventh. Toddy Mustang is sixth, 0.7 ahead of Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing is P7, 0.5 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang is P6, 0.3 behind Bray. Toddy Mustang passed Bray for P5. Bray is P6, 0.5 ahead of Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing is P7, 0.2 behind Bray. Dave B Racing passed Bray for 6. Bray is 7th, 0.3 behind Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing is P6, 2.7 ahead of Bray. Johnny Prince from New Zealand is second on Supers. Best lap is a 1:35.265. 1.152 off the fastest lap. Dave B Racing is sixth on Supers, 0.9 behind Toddy Mustang. That Canadian guy is P3, 0.7 behind Johnny Prince. Dave B Racing is 6th, 0.3 behind Toddy Mustang. "15 minutes remaining in the session. Johnny Prince is second on Supers, 0.5 ahead of that Canadian guy. That Canadian guy from Canada is P3, 0.4 ahead of the race dictator. The race dictator was 0.8 faster last lap. Johnny Prince is second on Supers, 0.2 ahead of that Canadian guy. That Canadian guy is third on Supers, 0.1 behind Johnny Prince. Johnny Prince from New Zealand is P2, 0.4 ahead of that Canadian guy. That Canadian guy is P3, 0.3 behind Johnny Prince. Toddy Mustang is P4. Best lap is a 1:35.484. 1.371 off the fastest lap. That Canadian guy is third, 0.8 behind Johnny Prince. Toddy Mustang is P4, 0.5 ahead of the race dictator. Dave B Racing is 6th, 0.5 behind the race dictator. Dave B Racing was 0.7 faster last lap. Dave B Racing is now 5th. The race dictator from New Zealand is 4th on supers, 0.9 ahead of Dave B Racing. Toddy Mustang is 3rd, 0.8 ahead of the race dictator. The race dictator is P4, 0.4 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang is 3rd, 0.5 ahead of the race dictator. The race dictator is 4th, 0.4 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang was 1.0 faster last lap. Toddy Mustang is 3rd, 0.4 ahead of the race dictator. The race dictator from New Zealand is 4th, 0.4 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang is P3, 0.3 ahead of the race dictator. The race dictator is P4, 0.5 behind Toddy Mustang. The race dictator is now 3rd. That Canadian guy is P7, 0.5 behind Bray. "10 minutes remaining in the session. The race dictator is P3, 0.9 behind Toddy Mustang. That Canadian guy from Canada is 7th, 0.3 behind Bray. That Canadian guy passed Bray for 6th. Bray is 7th. Best lap is a 1:38.497. 4.696 off the fastest lap. The race dictator is P3. Best lap is a 1:34.735. 0.934 off the fastest lap. Bray is P7, 1.3 behind that Canadian guy. That Canadian guy was 1.6 faster last lap. The race dictator is P3. Toddy Mustang is P2 on supers, 0.4 behind Jason Short. The race dictator is P3, 0.4 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang is P2, 0.4 ahead of the race dictator. The race dictator is third, 0.2 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang is P2 battling the race dictator. The race dictator is P3 on supers, 0.3 ahead of Dave B Racing. Toddy Mustang is second, 0.3 behind Jason Short. Toddy Mustang was 4.4 faster last lap. Dave B Racing is P3 on supers, 0.3 ahead of the race dictator. Dave B Racing was 1.7 faster last lap. Dave B Racing lost third to the race dictator. Toddy Mustang is P2. Best lap is a 1:34.534. 0.733 off the fastest lap. The race dictator on lap 8 is P3, 0.4 ahead of Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing was 1.7 faster last lap. Toddy Mustang is P2, 0.6 ahead of the race dictator. The race dictator is P3, 0.6 ahead of Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing is P4, 0.6 behind the race dictator. The race dictator is third, 0.7 behind Toddy Mustang. 5 minutes remaining in the session. That Canadian guy entering the pits is 7th. Dave B Racing is P4, 0.4 behind the race dictator. That Canadian guy entering the pits is 7th. Toddy Mustang is second, 1.2 ahead of the race dictator. Bray is 5th, 1.0 behind Dave B Racing. Bray passed Dave B Racing for P4. That Canadian guy exiting pits on mediums. The race dictator is P3, 1.0 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang is P2. Best lap is a 1:34.275. 0.474 off the fastest lap. The race dictator is P3 on supers, 2.1 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang is second, 0.6 behind Jason Short. The race dictator is P3, 1.9 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang from New Zealand is second, 1.0 behind Jason Short. The Race Dictator from New Zealand is P3, 1.6 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang on lap 11 is second, 0.9 behind Jason Short. The Race Dictator is P3, 1.7 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang is P2, 0.9 behind Jason Short. The Race Dictator is third, 2.1 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang is second, 0.9 behind Jason Short. The Race Dictator is P3, 2.4 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang is second, 1.3 behind Jason Short. Jason Short is P1. The leader has just finished the race. Jason Short finished first. Toddy Mustang finished P2. The Race Dictator finished P3. Bray is P4. Bray finished fourth. Dave B Racing finished P5. That Canadian guy is P7. Johnny Prince is P6. That Canadian guy finished P7. Johnny Prince finished P6. Broadcast bot is P8. The race session is at Permanent Circuit Waikato in Henley, New Zealand. That Canadian guy from Canada is P1 on mediums. 20 minutes remaining in the session. Race start. Bray from Italy is P2 on mediums. Bray lost P2 to Dave B Racing. Bray passed Dave B Racing for P2. Dave B Racing from New Zealand is third on supers. Bray is P2. Toddy Mustang from New Zealand is third on supers. Bray is P2. Toddy Mustang is third. Bray is second, 0.8 behind that Canadian guy. That Canadian guy is P2, 0.5 behind Bray. That Canadian guy lost P2 to Johnny Prince. The race dictator from New Zealand is P4 on supers, 0.4 behind Johnny Prince. That Canadian guy is second, 0.4 behind Bray. Johnny Prince from New Zealand is P3 on supers, 0.5 ahead of the race dictator. That Canadian guy is second, 0.4 behind Bray. Johnny Prince is P3, 0.8 ahead of the race dictator. That Canadian guy is P2, 0.1 behind Bray. That Canadian guy passed Bray for first. Bray is second, 0.2 behind that Canadian guy. Bray is now first. Johnny Prince from New Zealand is P3, 0.2 ahead of Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing is fourth, 0.3 ahead of Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang is P4. Best lap is a 1:42.593. 0.750 off the fastest lap. Toddy Mustang passed Johnny Prince for P3. Johnny Prince is P4, 0.2 ahead of Dave B Racing. 15 minutes remaining in the session. Toddy Mustang is third, 0.9 behind Jason Short. Dave B Racing is P5, 0.7 behind Johnny Prince. The race dictator on lap 4 is P6, 1.0 behind Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing is 5th, 0.1 ahead of the race dictator. Dave B Racing was 3.6 faster last lap. Jason Short from New Zealand on lap 4 is P2 on Supers, 0.3 behind Bray. Jason Short was 1.2 faster last lap. Toddy Mustang is third, 0.8 behind Jason Short. Bray is P2 battling Jason Short. Bray passed Jason Short for first. Bray lost first to Jason Short. Toddy Mustang is third, 0.6 behind Bray. Toddy Mustang is now second. Jason Short is third, 0.7 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang is P2, 0.3 behind Bray. Jason Short from New Zealand is third, 0.4 behind Toddy Mustang. Jason Short is now P2. Bray is P3, 0.7 behind Jason Short. Jason Short from New Zealand is second, 0.6 behind Toddy Mustang. The race dictator from New Zealand is sixth, 0.4 behind Dave B Racing. Jason Short is second, 0.6 behind Toddy Mustang. The race dictator is sixth, 0.2 behind Dave B Racing. Jason Short is P2, 0.6 behind Toddy Mustang. Dave B Racing is P6, 0.7 behind the race dictator. The race dictator was 0.9 faster last lap. Jason Short is second, 0.7 behind Toddy Mustang. Dave B Racing is 6th, 0.5 ahead of that Canadian guy. 10 minutes remaining in the session. Jason Short is P2. Best lap is a 1:33.542. That Canadian guy is 7th, 0.2 behind Dave B Racing. That Canadian guy passed Dave B Racing for P6. Jason Short is 2nd, 0.8 behind Toddy Mustang. The race dictator is 5th, 0.9 behind Johnny Prince. That Canadian guy entering the pits is 7th. Johnny Prince is 4th, 1.1 behind Bray. Jason Short is P2 on Supers, 1.3 ahead of Bray. Dave B Racing exiting pits on Supers. That Canadian guy exiting pits on mediums. Bray is P3, 0.7 behind Jason Short. Jason Short was 1.2 faster last lap. Jason Short is 2nd, 0.6 ahead of Bray. Bray is 3rd, 0.5 behind Jason Short. Jason Short is P2, 0.3 ahead of Bray. Bray is 3rd, 0.3 ahead of the race dictator. The race dictator is 4th, 0.2 behind Bray. The race dictator lost 4th to Johnny Prince. Johnny Prince is 4th, 0.4 behind Bray. Johnny Prince passed Bray for 3rd. Bray is P4, 0.3 behind Johnny Prince. The race dictator on lap 8 is P5, 0.6 behind Bray. Bray is 4th, 0.5 ahead of the race dictator. The race dictator is 5th, 0.7 behind Bray. Bray is P4, 0.6 behind Johnny Prince. Johnny Prince was 1.4 faster last lap. The race dictator is P5, 0.5 behind Bray. 5 minutes remaining in the session. Bray is P4, 0.7 ahead of the race dictator. The race dictator is 5th. Best lap is a 1:35.492. 1.950 off the fastest lap. Jason Short on lap 9 is P2, 1.1 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang was 1.1 faster last lap. The race dictator is 5th, 0.6 behind Bray. Jason Short is 2nd, 0.9 behind Toddy Mustang. The race dictator is P5, 0.6 behind Bray. Jason Short is 2nd, 1.5 behind Toddy Mustang. The race dictator is 5th, 0.7 behind Bray. Bray is P4, 0.8 ahead of the race dictator. Jason Short is 2nd, 0.9 behind Toddy Mustang. The race dictator is P5, 0.1 behind Bray. Jason Short on lap 11 is P2, 0.8 behind Toddy Mustang. The race dictator on lap 11 is P5, 0.5 behind Bray. Bray is 5th. Best lap is a 1:34.714. 1.265 off the fastest lap. Jason Short from New Zealand is 2nd, 1.2 behind Toddy Mustang. Bray from Italy is 5th, 0.8 behind the race dictator. Jason Short is P2 on Supers, 1.4 behind Toddy Mustang. Bray is P5, 0.4 behind the race dictator. Jason Short is P2, 1.0 behind Toddy Mustang. Toddy Mustang is P1. The leader has just finished the race. Toddy Mustang finished P1. Jason Short finished second. Johnny Prince finished P3. The Race Dictator finished P4. Bray finished P5. Dave B Racing finished 6th. That Canadian guy is P7. That Canadian guy finished 7th.